Hi guys, so today we're going to be debunking a little bit of psychology misinformation that I found on TikTok, so let's get into it. So the first video that we're going to be reacting to is by Josh Psychology, and here it is. So in case you missed it, on screen it says, according to psychology, people learn the habit of catastrophizing due to a traumatic experience they never saw coming. As a defense mechanism to protect themselves in the future, they start imagining the worst case scenario in every situation because they are terrified of being caught off guard again. If you can relate, maybe this account is for you. First off, anytime I see a video that starts with according to psychology, that to me is a dead giveaway that the person making that video is about to give you a whole bunch of BS. Let me tell you what an actual psychology expert might say with increasing levels of credibility. So when an expert is talking about something off the cuff, something maybe that they learned in school or a study that they don't quite remember, they might say according to research or according to studies. It increases one level of credibility if they say according to blank study, because then you can actually go and check for yourself if you're not sure whether you believe them. Then going up another level of credibility, if they say something like, according to this study with these specific limitations, that tells you not only are they familiar with the particular study in question, but also they understand that this study is not a be-all, end-all, that it's not representative of all the information that there is on a certain subject. And at the top level of credibility, I would say when you really know that somebody knows their shit in a specific niche, they would probably say something like, some studies show X, but they have Y limitations, whereas stronger studies show Z, where they have a really clear understanding of the overall research in a particular topic rather than just one study, and they have an understanding of what some studies say versus others. They know that there is contrast between them because usually there is within any field contrast between what studies say, and they can sort of speak to what's causing that contrast between those studies. No psychology expert that I know would just say according to psychology. That would be kind of like somebody who's a political science major saying according to politics. What do you mean? According to politics? What are you referring to? There are different theories within politics as well, different viewpoints on even very specific topics, so it simply doesn't make sense. Now, this guy's Instagram bio says he's a psychology student. It's unclear to me at what level, and this is an issue because if somebody's framing themselves as an expert in a particular topic, you need to be informed about what is the extent of their credibility. That's not to say that people who don't have expertise in a particular topic can't bring insight to the table. They certainly can. The issue is more that you need to know where a person is giving their information from. So I talk about my qualifications on here because I want you to know that what I'm saying comes from my training as a doctor of psychology. If somebody is giving you a piece of information and they have really no qualifications to back it up, it's just something that maybe they read on a blog post, that's also something that you should know. You should know what their source is. You should sort of know where the information is coming from so that you can assess its credibility. Now, a huge problem with videos like this is it makes it sound like if this is your experience, then this is the cause. When in reality, it's more like this. If this is your experience, there are a number of possible different causes, and they greatly depend on context. So for example, in this specific case, people do sometimes catastrophize due to experiencing the worst case scenario in the past, and that would sort of be an example of anxiety created by adversity or trauma. But there are also tons of other possible explanations. Maybe this person saw catastrophizing modeled by their caregivers, so that's what they do in turn. Maybe they have a genetic or temperamental predisposition to catastrophize. For example, catastrophizing can be a huge component of OCD, and OCD is very neurobiological in its etiology, meaning it's not necessarily caused by trauma. Some people just want to prepare for the worst, like some Stoics, for instance, they like to visualize the worst case scenario to mentally rehearse it and sort of prepare themselves emotionally for the outcome. And it's not necessarily pathological in those situations. If it doesn't cause them distress and or impairment in their functioning, then it's not pathology, it's not a disorder, it's not caused by trauma, it's actually adaptive in that situation. So the problem with videos like this is that people will see them and they will assume this is about their situation when it's not necessarily. And then it sort of becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy or even confirmation bias, where you're going through life thinking, I catastrophized because something traumatic happened to me, and then you're sort of digging through your past trying to think of what trauma was done to you, who did this to you, when maybe there isn't necessarily a trauma behind this in your specific situation. And also another thing I want to flag is that that this person misuses the term defense mechanism where it should be cognitive distortion. Defense mechanism is a term from psychoanalytic and psychodynamic theories of psychology, and it's about unconscious ways in which your psyche is trying to protect you from seeing the truth about something, to protect you from feelings of shame or anxiety or guilt or so forth. For example, denial, where someone will deny the facts of a situation because they're not prepared to see that situation head on, because if they were to see that situation, it would cause them a lot of anxiety. For example, a lot of people during the COVID-19 pandemic were unconsciously so scared of the disease that they convinced themselves that it doesn't exist. If they were to face the reality that the disease exists, they would not be able to sleep at night because they would be so scared. So defense mechanisms actually protect you from experiencing anxiety, whereas cognitive distortions are the opposite. They often cause you anxiety. They are distorted ways of thinking about things, illogical ways of thinking about situations that end up causing you more harm. Now, defense mechanisms can also cause harm if you are not seeing reality for what it is, but they're kind of opposites, and then defense mechanisms protect you from anxiety, cognitive distortions worsen anxiety. So it's something minor, but it's just like one of those situations where you can really tell that the person who made the video doesn't have a grasp of what they're really talking about. You may notice, once again, I have moved to another country because of the different background, which means once again, I am left yearning for something that I used to have in the US, which is ZocDoc, the sponsor of today's video. Let's be real, there are a lot of terrible things about the healthcare system in the US, so any tool you can use to simplify that process for you is much needed. ZocDoc is a free app and website designed to help you find high quality in-network providers, pick the one you want, and instantly book an appointment. They have over 100,000 providers in a wide range of specialties. It's super easy to find a healthcare provider in your specific area who takes your insurance, see all the reviews before you actually book with that person. You can choose the most convenient time for you, often available within 24 to 72 hours. Because let's be real, I know a lot of you guys have probably been putting off going to the doctor. Maybe you just don't want to pick up the phone and call the office. Totally get it. I don't like doing that either. Maybe you're afraid if you do end up calling the office, they're going to say, yeah, our next appointment is available April 2026. Maybe you don't even know who to call. Maybe you don't even have like a point person that you know to go to. Let ZocDoc handle all of the hard parts so that you can just focus on your health. With just the click of a button, you book an appointment, and again, it is completely free to you. Visit my ZocDoc link in the video description to easily book local top-rated doctors who can see you soon. Thank you so much to ZocDoc. Now, video number 2 is by Narako Relatable. Let's watch this one. So in case you missed it on screen, this one says, according to psychology, people who experienced a traumatic upbringing can often predict movie and TV show plots early due to faster processing and pattern recognition in their brains. This can be highly frustrating for the partners or friends they are watching it with. If you can relate, maybe this account is for you. So right off the bat, I just want to say it's very obvious that this is a pretty complete copycat to Josh Psychology. From what I know, I'm not super tuned into psychology misinformation on TikTok, but from what I know, Josh Psychology is kind of like the OG according to psychology guy who spreads misinformation, and it seems like a lot of people saw that formula sort of works for him, and they completely copied that formula. According to psychology, insert thing that's not necessarily true, and then end with a call to action like follow my account for more. And both of these creators also have videos that follow a similar formula in different ways, both of them have videos about my therapist said blank. So it seems likely that a lot of these, according to psychology videos, are simply parroting each other with no actually credible source, just trying to go viral with somebody else's formula. And in general, I think on TikTok, there's a huge authenticity crisis because I am constantly, every single day, seeing people on my For You page in all different niches saying this creator is word for word copying or frame for frame copying what I am posting to TikTok. And that is just not a sustainable way to build an audience, in my opinion. It might work for you in the short term, but in the long term, if you're not showing up authentically, you're going to run out of content, you're going to get sloppier and sloppier, and you're going to get called out for the fact that you're literally just the internet version of plagiarizing people. But anyway, I digress. So as to the contents of this video, I have kind of the same qualms as with the last one. It's possible that someone who experienced a traumatic upbringing might be able to predict plot early due to faster pattern recognition, and it's possible that that might be annoying for the people watching with them. However, I'm not aware of any studies that look at this. So where is this claim coming from exactly? Also, I can see how pattern recognition could help with some types of plot, like with horror or thriller plots, like knowing in those types of movies, like what an abuser is about to do if you've experienced being in a relationship with an abuser. But how exactly is it supposed to help with something like a comedy or an action movie? Like, I don't really see how that tracks. I think more likely possible reasons why someone might be able to predict plot include just good pattern recognition as a result of someone just sort of innately possessing that trait, not necessarily caused by trauma. And there are even possible sex-based differences in pattern recognition. For example, men tend to be better at visuospatial pattern recognition, whereas women tend to be better at emotional and social pattern recognition. So it's very much not just caused by trauma. It could literally just be, biological differences. Good pattern recognition is also a sign of fluid intelligence. It requires good working memory, meaning being able to hold multiple things in your head at once and manipulating them mentally. It requires cognitive flexibility, attentiveness to detail, being able to think ahead. You could also have good pattern recognition if you have experience in a creative field. For example, I can often predict what's going to happen in horror or thriller movies because I am a horror and thriller author. So when you have experience in a particular domain, you start to recognize patterns that you've seen before, or you start to think in ways that other people in the field also tend to think. So those are just a few possible explanations of good pattern recognition that have nothing to do with trauma. The point is that videos that follow the formula, according to psychology, if blank happens to you, this is the cause, are often oversimplistic at best, misinformation at worst. So yeah, be really careful with misinformation, particularly on TikTok, but really anywhere on the internet, because there's a lot of it out there. Some of it is from people who say they're experts in psychology. Some of it is from people who are actually experts in psychology. Use discernment, check the facts, think critically, all that good stuff. Let me know what you thought about these videos down in the comments. Don't forget to book an appointment with ZocDoc using the link down below, and I'll see you soon.
Tell me what you need, tell me what you need, tell me what you need.